Okay, well, we'll get going now. Thanks for joining this morning. My name is Derek Major. I'm with Eligio Business Solutions out of our Vancouver office. Today we're doing a workshop type, a little bit different than we normally do with webinars. Sometimes they're more informational, but this one's more workshop oriented. So we're going to walk through a few exercises on how to build a business process. And what I'm going to do is cover off a few different topics and tools that you can use within your business. Oh, kind of mixed up my slides, so we'll have to jump around a little bit here. That's okay. Agenda, we'll start off a little bit about who we are. If you're not familiar with Eligio, I'll go over a little bit about some of the things we do. Then we're going to jump into designing a business process. We're going to do that directly in Microsoft Visio today. Then what I'm going to also do is just show you how you can also do that in other tools that a lot of people already have, including PowerPoint. There's also a number of other tools out there as well that I'll just kind of touch on. I won't actually go into them, but I'll give you a bit of an overview of some of the tools that you could use that are starting to become a little bit more popular. Then we'll touch on automation. Once we kind of built a bit of a process in Visio, like how can we automate a little bit of that? And then finally Q&A. So the process that we actually built, I'm going to be doing that and showing, once we've done the process, I'm going to walk into Monday.com and walk you through what it actually looks like to transpose your business workflow into something in Monday.com. So sorry, I apologize. I'm just going to pop back up a couple slides here. So a little bit about ourselves. What do we do? Our main business is dealing with customers to help them with business software. CRM is a big thing for us. We're a certified partner with Sugar CRM. And we're also a Monday.com partner, of course, too. So some of the things we do is we provide consulting, help desk services. Typically, people look at us as a go-to partner. I see a couple questions coming in. Robert, yes, we will be recording. The question was, are we going to be recording the session today? And yes, we will be posting that in a few days, available on YouTube. We'll send an email out afterwards, which will give you the link as well. Some of the stuff that we do specifically on Monday.com is business process audits. So I'm sure if you played around with Monday.com or you're a current subscriber, there's a lot you can do with Monday.com, and like anything in our organizations, there's a lot of right ways, gray area ways to do things, wrong ways to do things. The idea that I'm trying to get people to think about with this particular webinar and some of the work that we do is planning ahead and trying to understand how your business operates before you kind of dive head first into Monday.com. The preparation you can do beforehand is really helpful to kind of get your entire team on board. Other things we do as well, starter kits, training, we also do custom integrations, and I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end as it relates to the process side of things too. Just going to jump ahead here again. So let's talk a little bit about designing the business process. Why do we build business processes out? Really, we're trying to build a structure. So if we want to go build a house, we're not just going to go hammer and nail and just start, seeing how it goes. We actually want to build a nice foundation. We want to build a good structure to support what we're doing with Monday.com's tool. If you don't do that up front, you quickly lose people from being engaged in using the tool and actually creating efficiencies in the organization. In fact, if you don't do it right, you probably can turn people off and nobody's going to use it. It becomes an anchor on the organization where you might have invested some money into something and all of a sudden nobody's using it. That's planning ahead too. So I'm not saying that your business process is always going to be the same today. Because Monday is very fluid, you might find other efficiencies as you start using the tool. But trying to actually build process and build instructions and whatnot around what you're trying to do within the organization, how it uses Monday is really, really critical. Creating a flow of information. So the process I'm going to work on today is really showing you how to walk that flow through in the organization and finally understanding your process. I've been doing this a long time, and it's It's interesting when you sit down with people that have been in an organization 5, 10, 20 years, and when you ask them, well, what's the process for this or for that, and a lot of it's upside, it's inside of their heads. It's not actually on paper. So they might have a good idea what it is. Their colleagues might have their own ideas of how it is. By actually sitting down and documenting something, it really helps everyone get on the same page. So let's get right into it. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for 2 seconds while I switch over to another window here, which I'm going to open on Visio. Let's go open this up here, 2 seconds. And we are now into Visio. This is not an extensive course on Visio. I'll say that right now. You could probably spend days trying to understand theory, understand best practices and all that. I'm going to keep this really simple and really easy to understand. So I'm going to start with some very, very basic concepts of workflow. And then what we'll do is we'll build out a workflow for a property management company. And then we're going to take that workflow and actually transpose that into how we'd like to see that in Monday. So a couple things. In Visio, this kind of looks like Microsoft Word. This blank canvas that I have here is where I'm going to be putting my different shapes, also known as stencils, into the canvas to actually bring them together to build a process. If you take a look on the left here, you have a number of different stencils you can work with. There's only a couple we're going to work with today. The first one is just going to be in a rectangle. And what a rectangle in Business Process Manager recognizes is that it's a process. So open door, walk to car. So it's an action, some sort of action that's happening. Our next process step, let's just go grab one here. I have it hidden on there, so let me just go over here. I'm just going to go over the flowcharts. And we are going to go use basic flowcharts. So you can kind of play around with your shape. There's tons of stencils. Some people do layouts of their homes in these things. So I think there's a process back. What I was looking for is a diamond, is a decision tree. So what decision means is that we might have a process. So if I say that this process is open door, the decision is, does the door open? And it's either going to be a yes, and it's either going to be a no. That's how we're going to kind of handle that. And then finally, we have the third one option I'm going to be using today is called a sub-process. This would be a completely different process that it might be documented somewhere else. So if I open the door and say an alternate workflow, for example, and I open the door and the door falls on me and I get injured, there might be a separate process for, I don't know, going to the hospital or something like that. So the idea is that you're trying to create a very streamlined process that's easy to understand, but you don't want to get too caught up in the weeds of too much detail. So with all that said, I'm just going to delete these. I'm just going to add some text in here for context. We're just going to call this the property management workflow. So within our workflow, what we're going to do is there's 3 processes that I'm targeting. So if you ever do a business process analysis in your organization, you'll probably sit down and do a very high level, what kind of processes do we do in the organization? For this particular property management company, the processes I'm going to be working with are, there's a new property available for rent. And then the second process is going to be, there's a new applicant. So I'm just going to quickly write this down here, go down here and drop this. We'll call this new property available for rent. And then we'll drop another at the very bottom here. I'm just going to, usually you can create multiple tabs. If you've used Excel before, very similar, you can have multiple tabs across the bottom. So you could actually name this process 1, process 2, etc. But for now, I'm just going to, just for simplicity's sake today, I'm just going to put it all on one canvas. So I have it on my canvas here, some labels. So we have a new property for rent. So what we need to do now is document, well, how do we get this property available for rent? So there's a few steps that we need to go through. So the first step that we do is we just drop a little process in here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. so that we can see a little bit more I'm doing here. We'll go actual size. So our first step in the process box would be to add property available for rent. I'll fix this font in 2 seconds here. I can barely read that. Add property for rent. We try to keep these short. We want to be as concise as possible. After we add a property to rent, we might go over here and say we need to verify the premises. Then we can add another step in here that we need to ensure all appliances are good. Then I might pop in and say when I sign off on property, I want to go over here and say list property for rent. And finally, wait for applicants. So I've dropped some process boxes in here. Now I can go up here and grab a connector, and I can start piecing the puzzle together of what this process looks like. So you can kind of drop them in there, just like that. Now, what you might end up doing too, like I said, you might have some decisions along the way here. So let's say we verify the appliances, but let's go down here and drop this down. Our appliance is okay. Just going to drop this up again. Might be a little too big. So our appliance is okay. So again, if they are, we can go on here. And this little line over here, you can just double click on it and say, yes, they're totally fine. So yes means we sign off on the property and move on. Or maybe we have a sub process to go purchase new appliances. And we come back here, grab another connector, drop this back over here, connect that up there. And then we say no. So basically what I've documented here is we add a property for rent, we verify the premises, we ensure they're all good. But we make a decision, oops, no, they're not. So we have to go back and another process kicks off to buy appliances. Then we have to re-verify again and go through it again until we get a yes to move on down the rest of our workflow. That is a very basic example of new property for rent. So let's take this and move along with new applicant. So this is assumptions we're making it with a new applicant. We're assuming that a property is available for rent. So now what we will do here is I'm going to go, actually I'm just going to copy and paste so we don't have to mess around with the let me read that. I don't deal with that. I'm not worried about that. It's moving my line around. So some people make this as a form of art as well too. So depending what you're doing, if it's going in front of executives, you might want to clean it up a little bit more. But for now, for what we're doing, this should be fine. So steps for applicants. So let's say we have a new applicant coming through, and applicant visits new property. Be our first step, and then our second step could be, we'll say they complete the application, and then we might have a step along the way here that we say request references and verify. Obtain deposit. And then finally set status pending. Pending approval by landlord. And then finally approving application. So I'm not going to go through all the decisions on this for the sake of time, but as you can imagine, request references, I might have a decision point on here. Do references all check out? And actually, now I said that, I'm just going to give you an example here of, you can see over here on our tools, I have the basic flowchart examples here, but it's possible that you verify a reference and this process ends. So process ends. So that could happen if you reach a dead end. So if the references come back and no good, the process ends and we continue on. So I am going to actually, so we can illustrate this in Monday as well. Approved, question mark. So go on here. As you can imagine, you probably brainstorm a lot with your teams when you're doing this kind of thing, because there's a lot that can kind of go on here with building a process. So we'll add some more decision boxes on here. Go here, and let's say if they're approved, the flow can continue up back to obtain deposit. Or in this case, process ends, and we say they're not approved, no, then we're done with that. So this is just a very rudimentary example of putting together a quick workflow. So what we want to do now is, okay, I built my process out. How do I get this into monday.com? That's what we want to do. So there's a couple things that we need to cover off. And when I look at my workflow here, you start thinking, once I built the workflow out, you don't build the workflow with Monday in mind, you build the workflow with your business in mind. That's what you want to do. And then afterwards, you can start combing through this and deciding how you want this to look on Monday. So when I look at add property for rent, to me, that tells me I need some sort of pulse in Monday that has to be added there. And I'm probably going to need a board that shows me a list of properties that we have available. Verify the premises. That could be a number of things. That could be a status. That could be a checkbox. It could be a number of different things we might want to do. So this really is going to come down to preference more than anything. I'm going to show you an example when we go through monday.com, but it's kind of totally up to you how you want to do it. There's a few options. You could do multiple pulses, or you could use the checklist feature inside of monday.com. Decisions. Are appliances okay? Purchase new appliances. So we might need to accommodate another board, which is for procurement, for instance, where we need to get new appliances ordered. And finally, if everything's good, we sign off on property. Again, that could be a status. We can list the property, and maybe we wait for applicants. So to me, it sounds like we have a couple boards. We have one for procurement. We have one for property. And it sounds like we might have a few statuses and checklists to deal with. So we're going to come back to that in a second. Finally, new applicant. We're probably going to need a board for a list of applicants. But I think what we're going to end up doing is creating a board for each property and listing a group of tasks by applicant. So there's a few different ways you can kind of slice this. That's the nice thing on Monday. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop sharing Visio, and I'm going to pop over to monday.com now, and we're going to go through and build out some boards. So let me go. Make sure I got my right window here. All right. Now we're in Monday. So first up, we're going to tackle that process around new property available for rent. So I have a bunch of test boards in here, but we'll just kind of bury them at the bottom here. So the first one we're going to start off with is properties available for rent. So I'm going to go in here and create a new board, properties available for rent. So now I have a blank board, just like most people would start off with. So from here, I just start putting together my boards. Is really what I would do. So available for rent. I'd probably start looking at. So I know it's hard to see without the drawing in front of you right now. But the first thing we thought was add in property to rent. So we're going to be able to add a pulse on here to indicate something's for rent. Then I had a list of things like verify the premises and all that, but I might want to add some columns in here, like maybe who the coordinator or the property manager is, for instance. So I might put who the property manager is, the person. So we'll add that in there. Now I might go and say, I might want to say the status. So what's the status of the property? And so I can go on here and say, let's click on here. The default one's done, working on, stuck in there, but I'm just going to add the labels. And then we'll change this. So done is going to be filled. We're going to go on here. We're going to change this one for ready for tenants, maybe. Kind of going backwards on my list here. Pending inspection. And maybe new. And we'll put new at the top here and just kind of reorder these a little bit. And then apply. So if we have new on here, that we know that we have a new property that we're dealing with that hasn't really started in the workflow. So then what I can do is I can also add checklists in here. If you've never seen this before, if you kind of peel back the little cell of Monday.com here, you can see a little plus. I can go in here, and this is just a pulse update that allows me to add checklists in here. So I can go in here and add a checklist. So let's say verify the premises. We can say ensure all appliances are good. Appliance, well, we've already, I'm just looking at my list here. Property signed off for rental. Anything else you really want to put on there. Added to the applicant tracking board, because we need to have this on the tracking board in order to track it as well. So I'll just hit update on that. So now I have this here that had this. What some people do is, in order, because you'd have to recreate this pulse every single time with this checklist. What a lot of people do is they might even call this like template. Just like that. And then the idea is that I can just go on here and just duplicate the pulse every time I have a new property. So I'm just going to close this. So let's say we have a new property coming in. I would just go on here. I would duplicate the pulse. And we'll say we have, again, I'm in Vancouver, so say downtown Vancouver condo and expensive Yale town. Actually, if you know about Vancouver, it's expensive everywhere. So we just add this in here. We leave it at new. I might assign someone to the property, maybe myself. And that might be all I want to do on there. I could add in other things, other options put in there is like appliances. If you wanted to, this is another way instead of checklists. If you're more visual, you can go on here and just say appliances, edit labels. Maybe we only want a couple, pending, all okay, or better yet, I'll change that to pending. Waiting for all okay, we'll put in green because green sounds more positive, and then we will say pending procurement in case we had to order something. So we're taking that pending procurement piece as part of our appliances. So as I move through the process, everything's okay. You can just mark that as okay. So that's how we do the available for rent. So anytime I have another property, I just go on here and again, duplicate my pulse and move down the list. Again, I might even put another date on here. I might say date available. You might put that in there. You might have one that's already been rented, filled, whatever. You can kind of play around with that a little bit. So next, like I said, we need to track our applicants. So I'm going to do this a little bit differently, is that I'm actually going to create a folder. So down here, I'm just going to go in here and create a folder, and we're just going to call this applicants for properties. And this time what we're going to do is I'm going to create a new board. So we're going to call it template for applicant for properties. The reason why is because in this use case, I think it's more valuable to have, and you notice I just drop this up into the folder if you've never used them before. I think it makes more sense to have one specific board for all of your applicants. It just makes it a little easier to group things. So again, play around with it and find the best way to do it. But the idea here is I'm trying to transpose what I've done in a visual in Visio and put it in here to kind of meet the process flow a little bit, or as accurately as possible. So let's go into our template board. Let's create a template here. So what I would probably do is create like applicant name, first and last name would go here. Now our workflow, again, just to recap, is that an applicant visits the property and the applicant completes an application. We then need to request references, and then we need to get them approved. We need to obtain a deposit. So there's a few different things that we need to do as far as this goes. So I'm just going to do it like this, literally a list of tasks. You can do this any way you want. You can kind of do it so it's like I showed you with statuses too, but So let's say complete the application. And then I might put a status on here, just again, done working on it, if it's done or not. I might put, let me just take that out there. Because we're creating a template, we'll leave that for now. So complete the application. Then we need to request references and verify them. Then we need to go and obtain a deposit. And then we can go in and set the status, once approved or once deposit accepted, update properties available for rent. So we're just giving us a checklist item to remember to go back to our properties available for rent, which we just created up here, and actually mark the status to something different. And then finally, final approval on application. So this might be one way to do it. You could, like I said, go through a different way. This is more of a checklist, task-oriented style. You can kind of do a couple different ways. But let's walk through the workflow. Let's go back here and say, okay, well, this downtown Vancouver condo now, the status is now ready for tenants. Perfect. I'm just going to go in here and just grab the name of this downtown condo. I'm going to go back to my template here, and I need to copy this board. So what I'm going to do is duplicate the board, structure in the content. There it is, duplicate board. I'll just drag it up here. I'm going to give it, I just copied and pasted downtown Vancouver. And then let's say our first applicant comes in the door. I go in here and I duplicate the group. And I leave that at the top there. I want to be able to copy that. But then I can just go in here and say Derek Major and then start working through the process. So once Derek completes the application, I might go into here. I might drag and drop the application into the update so I can find it. I can request the references. So let's say Derek Major emails me, Derek Major, I'll list the references. I might copy and paste those right into the update so that I can go through them. I could just go through here and also say, let's say I gave references for John Doe, Bill Smith, Harry and Sally, and then I can just hit the update. And of course, I can just pin this to the top. So that's always at the top. And then I spoke with John, thinks Derek's a great guy. And then I hit on update, and it just, I can keep flowing down here to give myself an idea of the references. And then on and on and on, I can continue to do that. And the final approval might be, maybe we have one on here that's denied. Denied, apply, then you can do denied at the bottom or whatever you want to do as you work down your task list and all that too. So just like that. So that's one way to do the task-oriented way of managing your board on here. So that's kind of a basic flow. A lot of this, I'll admit, I kind of just made up on the fly, so there's probably a lot of things I missed. I don't run a property management company, but I assume that's probably a lot of things that they've had to go through when renting out a property, but it kind of gives you an idea of taking what you've done with the workflow inside of Visio and then transposing that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to Visio, just walk through that workflow again, and I'm just going to quickly show you how you could do something very similar using PowerPoint. I'm just going to stop sharing this screen and I'm going to pop back into Visio. So we're back in Visio. So we just tried recreating a couple processes here. New property available for rent, new applicant. We've transposed that as best as we could. We still need to test that out, see if it works, make sure we covered all our steps. But let's say you don't have Visio and you want to build something like this. So let's stop sharing again. I'm going to open up our PowerPoint. So a lot of people say, wow, Derek, why would I use PowerPoint? I thought I make presentations in here. And yes, you do. But you can also do some workflow stuff in here. It's very basic. It's not as clean and easy to use as you would do with Visio, but I mean, it can be done. So let's go in here and just build a blank canvas again. And from in here, I can go up to the insert. I can just go find my shapes up here. And that's where I can start going and creating a process box. I can go in here and create another shape for a decision box. Let's go find it in here. There, so I have a decision box now. I think we might have, there it is. It does have some flowchart elements in there, it looks like as well. So you could essentially do this same process in here and create connectors as well. If you go back to shapes, you can find connectors. You can go and actually just click and drag it over here. So you can actually do a lot of this stuff right directly inside of Visio as well. So, sorry, PowerPoint. So you can build your workflow out. But you'll notice it's not as clean, but it does get the job done. So if I want to say, I'll just add the couple steps here from the first one. So I'm going to go add property for rent. And then fill that off for a second. And I'll go and drag this over again. And go verify the premises. And again, I think everyone's probably got the idea of how this kind of flows. So you could just do exactly the same thing and then go back up to the top here and find your connectors and just connect one to another. So I use Visio, it's just easier. But I do a lot more extensive workflows. So, but if you're trying to just build up basic stuff just to get going, this is probably the best way to do it. Because you can get away with a lot of the things that you'd find in a more expensive product. So that's PowerPoint. So now I'm going to flip over to my PowerPoint presentation again. And then we'll just we'll proceed to wrap up a little bit here. So here, let me share the screen again. So we just talked about business process, talk about Visio. Let's talk a little bit about other tools. If you use Google Docs in your organization, Google Docs actually has something very similar to what I just showed you in PowerPoint. I believe it's under the insert menu or tools, one or the other. You can actually find a spot to insert a chart or rather a drawing. Yeah, that's right, it's called a drawing. You can put a drawing right into your Google Doc and actually create something very similar to what we've done with PowerPoint. If you're a Mac user, I also have a Mac that I use occasionally, and I use OmniGraffle on that. It's very comparable to what you would find on Visio, and because you can't get Visio on Mac unless you have like the Parallels or something like that. But OmniGraffle is a great tool. It's really easy to use. It gives you all the power you find in Visio, and it's only $100. Lucidchart, for those that want something more web-based, if you're using a Chromebook or something, that's another popular one that's web browser-based. So you actually log in. You don't actually install anything on your computer, much like Google Docs. It's all in your web browser. You can kind of use it in there. So that's another really good tool too. Let's talk a little bit about automation. So you saw that we might create a property, but then we have to create an applicant and we have to copy templates and all that stuff too. There's ways around that. There's Zapier is one way to start doing some automation. You could potentially do something where Zapier, which if you've never heard of Zapier before, it's an automation tool. If you take a look at a webinar we did a couple weeks ago on our YouTube channel, we actually talked a little bit about that and actually demonstrated it too. You can go through a series of actions saying, if a pulse equals the following status, then go do something. And that something could be creating another pulse inside of Monday, potentially on an applicant board. So you can create some automation that way a little bit. The alternative, and we've been doing a lot more of this lately, is the custom code side of things. So we would actually write code based on business rules or workflows that we've done for clients, and that would help automate a lot of the board creation and the pulse creation and any of the copying of groups. So that's another way you could add some automation into the business too. So that's a little more complex stuff. There's costs involved with it though too. Keep that in mind. But for a lot of people, if you have a lot of people using the system, it probably makes a lot of sense. So that's it. That's all for business process stuff. Just some of my contact information on here. If you do have questions, I mean, feel free to pop into the chat right now and just drop some questions in there. Otherwise, if you're a little shy, you can also email me afterwards or reach out to us at hello@legio.com. We have a whole team available. If you've purchased Monday.com through us, or working with us, feel free to reach out to one of your customer success managers too. They're more than happy to help out any questions that you might have as well. And we do a free 1-hour consult. So if you want to sit down one-on-one with me and talk a little bit more about in detail how this might apply to your business, maybe you're not a property management company, we can kind of walk through some of the scenarios that you guys are looking at and see if there's something we can help you with there, or at least get you on the right track too. So don't see any questions, and that's totally fine. Like I said, we will have the video up probably a couple days. I'm off for the next few days, so it probably won't be till mid next week, but keep an eye out for an email through our newsletter with a link for that. But I appreciate everybody's time. I hope you enjoyed the content today, and we will talk to you next time.